No one has been more surprised and delighted than I have been about the success of the Blue Day book. I wrote 7 other books over 8 years, and none of them were published. And that sort of set the tone for the Blue Day book. You have to imagine, after all this time, I've got nothing to show anybody that I'm a writer at all, except for a great sheaf of rejection letters that say, yes, you're a writer, just a really, really lousy one. So I was feeling pretty ordinary about this, and quite disappointed and quite dispirited. And I was living in this little hovel, this very grotty little studio space down near the Central Railway Station in Sydney, which is the busiest railway station in Australia. And every time the trains come in, which is about every 15 seconds, it would sort of rain termite snow down on me and my work and my bed, which is on the floor, and it would cover everything in this dust, and all the rats would scurry about. You know, it was pretty ordinary. And the bottom floor was this 3-storey building. It was on its last legs, and the bottom floor was a Korean karaoke bar called the Ding Dong Dang. And sort of from about midnight till 2 in the morning, you'd listen to, you know, the hits of the 70s and 80s with that particularly pleasing Pyongyang twang. it was great. And the middle floor was an illegal S&M brothel. I mean, this is a really seedy part of town, but that's where you have to go because it's the cheapest place to live. I've always said you have to put these extremes, these feelings into your work because you can't remember them. You know, if you don't put them down at the time, when you break your arm, you know it's going to get better, but you can't remember how it felt to feel strong and healthy. And when you're feeling great, you can't remember how it was to have a really bad cold. So I was doing that. I was feeling incredibly low, and basically I just decided to write the book that I needed. You know, every author, if they're honest, they'll tell you that they write for themselves. You write the books that you want to read. And that was true for me. And so I wrote a humble, humorous little book about perspective that gave me a laugh, you know, when I really needed it. The great charm of these books is their simplicity. I've always believed that, you know, genius is taking the complex and making it simple, but never the reverse. So I've always aspired to that. Never achieved it, but that's what I aspire to. I say, what's a really important and enduring problem? How can I address that from a fresh and funny perspective? Because I want to write the books that I want to read. You know, I like to write in a style that's not dissimilar to the way I like people to speak to me. I love people talking to me in a way that's polite, but, you know, friendly and funny. First thing I do when I'm writing a book is I focus on the very essence of the subject, the very essence of the question or the problem, and you know, how should I feel, you know, about this? How should I, you know, I want to get the feeling of the book right. And when I've got the very essence of it, then I build the structure around it. I write the book. But because it's a visual book as well, you have to be very flexible, because when I start looking for images, and I take, you know, thousands of wildlife photographs myself, but I'm looking for much more than just a great wildlife shot. It needs to fit the narrative perfectly. But quite frankly, images that I want or dream of, many of them simply don't exist. That's the way it is. So you have to be flexible. And at the same time, there are so many great photographers out there with some amazing work, and they turn up with these images that I could never have imagined in a million years, and they just write themselves in. So it's a very flexible, you know, creative process. And then it's just a matter of taking away, you know, cutting it away to something really simple and beautiful that flows like a conversation. So it's a lot of fun. I'm so grateful for the success of my books. I never would have dreamed it could have been this good. I would have worked a lot harder if I'd known how good it was going to be. But, you know, I don't live to write books. You know, I've always said that, you know, to create interesting work, you need to live an interesting life. That's always been my goal. When I'm not working, and I don't really think that I have a job, I mean, I carry a notebook around, I'm always drawing and writing notes, but, you know, I love to travel. I race dirt bikes in the Desert Racing Series. I still skydive. I still scuba dive. I travel. I was just cave diving in Mexico on a little break. I love that. It was a first for me. So I'm this stubble. I'm growing my beard to go to Antarctica. I'm going to do some sketching, some penguins, and see the last unspoilt part of the planet. So I get out there and see as much of the world as I can. And that's sort of what I do. Obviously, that's a holiday, but at the same time, that's what fuels everything else.